China asked the question of Elon and Tesla, are you bluffing? We also take a look at the new suspension system that's primarily going in the Model X and S, but also moving down to the Model 3. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks for joining. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. I also wanted to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. Without your assistance, this would not be possible. The first item that I wanted to bring up today is the 26th of December 2019. We've actually purchased some cookies and other items that we're going to bring by for the service folks. And I wanted to ask you to look at the bottom of our page. We have a PayPal link there, and would like to ask you to chip in 50 cents. We'll show you the live video when we drop off the goodies for the workers at our local service facility, but we'd ask that you do the same thing at your local home service facility as well. So my question was maybe 50 cents a piece. If we get 20 people, we're able to fund 20 bucks worth of goodies for the sales staff who's working really hard right now. And that's totally up to you. And it's not a huge amount, but we'd appreciate it if you consider it. So the elsewhere is, will China do what's called a gotcha? And what that means is that will China suddenly say, oh, we said we were going to do this, but XYZ happened and we're going to do that. There are a couple of people that mentioned that Tesla is doing well, but at some point the Chinese government might send a bunch of vehicles for management and say, we'd like all of you to leave the country immediately and we'll send your stuff behind you. So there are a lot of fears relative to what in fact is Tesla going to do in China, and what is the Chinese government really doing and thinking. And so to date, where we are is that we've got a factory built under Elon's specs, and the government has put it up and put up about $7 billion in the process. Now, they've done everything that they were saying they would do, which is sort of the origin of this show. I don't know if you all noticed, but there was a meeting in January of 2019 where there was a signed agreement finally to build a plant in China. China's been working on getting Tesla to do this for the last 2 years, and we're successfully able to accomplish that. So what then happened is that the Chinese indicated that the plant would be finished by October, ready for production in November of 2019. So as we shared, there were a number of entities that were interviewed that said that an auto plant could not be built in less than 2 years. And this is from a company that's done evidently 200 of those here in the United States. So what was interesting about this is, as you'll notice, that plant has been built and is now producing cars. You know, there's some discourse about where the sales are, et cetera. And so this, from my research, you know, over the last 5 to 7 years on Tesla, indicates the first time that there's been an agreement / promise made about timeliness of execution of something big like a car plant and the start of production, that Tesla has actually met the target. And the reason they met the target is because the Chinese were doing the work once the plans had been laid out. And so what this brings up is an interesting point, which is we actually think that over the next 3 years, Tesla / China are going to build at least 2 more, if not 3 plants. And we think the new plant is going to start construction in June of 2020 to be finished by spring of 2021 for another group of products. Both sides are currently feeling each other out. And if everything goes smoothly, that's where we believe things are going. And there are a number of reasons for that. The biggest reason for that is that one of China's stated goals is by 2025, they want to enter a leadership position in a number of technologies that are driving the future. So you'll note that the target for China when it comes to electric vehicles is to have 25% of all their vehicles by 2025 be electric vehicles. By 2035, their goal is to stop selling ICE vehicles. So the progress towards that goal was going slowly, hence the decision to go all in on supporting Tesla as the solution in the space. So note, not only did China go ahead and build on the factory in essence for free, but they've also set them up in a great place, Shanghai, to do manufacture. And based on what the Chinese plan is, there'll be no need for extra gigafactories anywhere else in the world. And the main reason is that once those factories are fully built in China, and China incentivizes its population to transition to electric, you're going to have economies of scale related production by Tesla in China that's going to be at a price point, cost point, that makes it prohibitive for the company to do work elsewhere. So where we see things going with China is just like we see 400,000 employees building Apple phones in, I believe, Shenzhen, in perhaps a wholly owned town. We believe that the Chinese goal is to have production of cars at a very high level, high rate, high quality, that's domestically produced and consumed from these factories. So we're kind of fascinated by this. The title of our show was to Elon, "Are you bluffing?" So the argument that's being made by everyone on our show, and to some extent Wall Street, is that Elon has indicated that they're going to start at 3,000 vehicles a week, and then they're going to jump to 10,000 vehicles a week. He stated it, and then the chairman articulated her fact that she had spoken with Elon, and those are the numbers that were given to her by Elon in terms of what they were going to execute. So she's sort of following this up because, as you'll notice, she went to Shanghai to meet with the workers there, et cetera. As of the 28th of December, they already have 3,500 employees, and they have another job fair that's being done to further build staff. And we believe this is to get that plant to round-the-clock operations to deliver production. So the title of this show is actually Elon, Are You Bluffing? And the reason why we chose that title is a number of our viewers posed the question, well, how can they build if they haven't caught up on production of Model 3 batteries, the 2170s in Reno, and they already have a goal of building 500,000 vehicles in the United States. So that means that if they're going to build somewhere around 200,000 cars in 2020 and 500,000 cars in 2021, they actually need those battery supplies to be able to fuel that plant. And so there looks like there's two solutions to that. One is to perhaps provide between 1 and 200,000 packs for that Model 3 until the new factory is completed in the battery plant is completed, theoretically late spring. And now we can start production of batteries right next door to the Chinese Gigafactory in Shanghai. But this is where the question mark of "Are you bluffing?" comes up, because the Chinese have done their part in terms of building the plant, $7 billion spent signing the agreement. And we feel like there's a process now with how China's executing business that suggests that they're challenging the management of Tesla to meet their side of the obligation. Now, I don't know if all of you know this, but Elon has a management process where he goes to the managers, he finds out what the expected time for completion of a task, particularly of a software task, is, and then he cuts that time in half. And now those managers are scrambling to deliver on that. And Elon knew what the stated delivery time was, but he puts a lot more demands on his staff in that process, and it's just how he manages. It results in a lot of people quitting, deadlines not missed, etc. But it's his management style. In this case with the Chinese, he's rolled out an aggressive plan for volume of vehicles produced and delivered, and change that happens in China because of the investment they've been making. So hence why we chose the show question, are you bluffing? So the backup to that, are you bluffing, asked by the Chinese, is Wall Street is asking the same thing. There is one analyst that came out a couple of days ago from Morgan Stanley, and he said, hey, we wonder if you're bluffing too, because we think you can only produce 50 or so thousand cars, and that demand may be light. I mean, there are all these what ifs that are question marks in the space. So the bluff question asked by the Chinese, et cetera, is also being asked by Wall Street. And so we think that there are three tiers of this. The absolutely no bluff is for Tesla to produce and sell 200,000 low-end Model 3s in China. The middle range of that is something like produce 50, 70,000 vehicles and tell everyone that, they're idiots at Panasonic, and if they gave us our batteries, we could have built the rest of it. Or obviously the low end of that situation is, they claim there's an accident at the factory and they don't deliver anything from that plant, or a very, very low number. And based on the number of people there and the fact that you can put the car together by hands if needed to at a rate of 100 cars a day, we think the lowest possibility is out. And we think the answer is somewhere between 50 and 200,000. The real bluff part is China is in the mind frame and the investment frame where they're like, we want our 500,000 cars in 2020. And so the question is, how do we get there? The answer is, we'll take those batteries that you guys want to send, but we'll build our own plant and help you figure out who's going to build those battery packs so we can get our 500,000 vehicles in 2020. So do we have an answer to the question? And the answer is, we don't have an answer. We actually have some really good questions that we just posed, and Elon is going to answer those questions in terms of how he executes. And that will determine whether Tesla's stock price doubles as we predicted in 2020 early part, or shoot, if the Chinese worked out with Elon for 500,000 vehicles to be produced at that plant in 2020, and don't forget, the Model Y is supposed to split time with those Model 3s starting late spring. If those 500,000 vehicles are delivered, it would be very easy for the stock to double and possibly triple in 2020, because once those vehicles start getting produced and we can all see the run rate that they're doing, they're actually going to start building another factory in another part of China to address this whole process. So we think it's an interesting situation. It's an interesting question. It's going to be answered in terms of delivery. One of the famous lines, I went to a high school called Culver Military Academy, and I've been meaning to ask my viewers, like you, as well as friends, what was the best piece of advice that you were ever given by an adult when you're in high school or college or whatever? And I had a friend of mine's dad who made a comment to me. He said, Greg, the way you need to handle your word is, if you agree to go to a meeting and your car breaks down on the highway, start running, because you need to protect your word with your life. And so that was one of the best pieces of advice, because when you establish protection of your word in that fashion, you get a lot of people to support and follow through, because they'll follow through on the mandate that you've set up. Now, Elon has been under a lot of pressure because they were short on cash as a small company, et cetera. So it made it more difficult for them to execute as they should have. But we believe that the Chinese, based on announcing and delivering that factory, helping Tesla to do so exactly on schedule, and in fact, ahead of schedule, they could have started production in September, if there was a lot of other things going on. So this establishes sort of a new paradigm for Tesla, where China may actually operate better than the rest of the company, because they don't go for missing deadlines. And you'll notice that with Elon and the Cybertruck and even the semi, there are all these agreed upon start of production delivery dates, and they've missed all of them. And there's good reasons, et cetera. There's another business term that says there are either reasons or results. And so the people who deliver results and on time get paid. Now, the next topic we're going to cover somewhat in depth is what's going on with the new suspension for the higher line vehicles. But I did want to mention that this brings up a discussion of SpaceX and access to shares. We've gotten maybe 15 people expressing interest in purchasing those shares. We've been slowed to the dime on that because we're wanting to make sure that we understand all the costs related to getting this put together, be it legal fees, travel, meeting with executives to get all those shares lined up. And so it's definitely being worked on. We have not responded to folks who have provided email addresses. And if you're interested, you can send us a note over at Teslafaninsight on Facebook with your email address, and we can respond to you as we figure out how this is going to work. The big challenge that pops up is there are some pre-costs related to just getting prepared and legal fees, et cetera. And how do those get paid? If in fact everyone wants shares, those fees still have to be done. And that's sort of been the holdup of working out how all that works. So we'll update you on that in later shows, especially if you send us an email. The final item we were focused on today is one of our regular viewers actually asked about what was up with the new suspension system that is associated with both Model X and S right now. And so we did a little bit of research on it. And basically what it brought up was the fact that, on an auto basis, as you're moving, you can choose sport or, luxury or cruising mode. And it changes the setup of the car so that you have less body roll if you're going to do a lot of twisting and turning, et cetera. Very nice feature. I think it's necessary because it makes it easier to manage the vehicle when you decide to drive it hard in a performance setting. I have to admit, tried to avoid certain internal to the car features for one really key reason, and that is that we just started doing a situation where we're posting perhaps one show a week or so that we've done beyond a year from now because we have so many new subscribers that did not see those shows. So in one of our shows, there's a gentleman who was an executive at Tesla, and his name is Mr. Duff, also a Stanford alum. And what he pointed out was that among some great information he gave about the batteries was that Tesla has a situation where they're vertically integrated. So about 80% of, or I guess now it's in the 70s% of the vehicles that Tesla builds are, that stuff is built in-house. So one of the things that's going on is that Tesla's cars, particularly the S and X, every 90 days, there's something like a 20% change in the vehicle. So if you looked inside a Model S from 2019 and or the 2020 model year would be now, but let's say 2018 to 2019, there'd be about an 80%, 90% change in a lot of elements of the vehicle. The company continues to learn and continues to refine that product. So once we learned about that, things like a suspension upgrade, if it's not another motor or a major move in that fashion, as we've seen with Raven or Plaid, we've tended to shy away because of this phenomenon of Tesla deciding to make these changes on an incremental and all the time basis. Now, this is really good because you're getting a better car, for the price, even if it doesn't look that different. It kind of sucks because those folks that do want to see a new skin are not getting it and have been demanding for it for a while and decided to just buy Model 3s instead. Hence why, one of the reasons why sales of Model S have actually declined. So part of our process of coverage has been, it's hard to get under the hood to figure out what they changed. And with them making consistent changes, it just makes it challenging to figure out what those changes are and what difference they really make. And is the difference significant enough that it might influence your buying decision? And the answer is yes, that's a nice suspension and nice features they've added, but it wasn't a big enough deal for us to say, hey, let's drop everything and make sure all of our viewers know about it, because whatever change they've just made with that thing, they're going to find improvements, et cetera, and those are going to be implemented in 3 months. And it's hard to do before and after because it's constant, and there are other things that change along with it. I will make a note on suspension of one of the things I love about both the Model S and the X is I'm 6'3", so one of the things that Tesla has broken through is the fact that if you want to drive fast and handle and et cetera at the top level of vehicles in the world, it's best that you're about 6 feet or 5'7" to 6 feet, because you need to be able to crawl down into a race car style body of the Ferrari or the Lamborghini. And so Tesla sort of changed all of that and moved up so big people like myself can comfortably get in. As I've shared before, the most amazing feature for people above 6 feet, particularly if you have a little bit of back problems and you're above 50, is the fact that in both the case of the Model S and especially the Model X, you can actually choose the height that the vehicle sits at before you get in it. That way, you can almost be standing up straight as you get into the car, and as you get in, it will drop down into a normal driving position, limiting the effort it takes to get in and out of the vehicle. And so that is awesome. So it is great that if it's heavy snow, you can elevate to the highest setting, and it gives you more ground clearance. So you're almost like an SUV in a Model 3, and you even get more clearance in the Model X. But it's the same movement of the vehicle that's used. It's also well known, and I'm sure if you're a Tesla owner, you know this, that there's something called velocity sensitive. So in the old days, basically, on most cars that are high end, you'd have the steering wheel get stiffer the faster you go, allowing you to handle a little bit of rattling of the car at high speed so you don't make sharp turns that'll cause an accident, etc. Because very subtle movements at high speed are appropriate. And when it comes to Tesla, the suspension system will actually change the orientation of the vehicle the faster you go, improving the aerodynamics of the car in the process. And that issue applies to all three model line, or soon all four vehicles in the stable operate in the same fashion. So, very interesting stuff. I wanted to review that we're blending between live and edited shows. And I wanted to, at this point in the show, say hello to everyone. I saw Donovan go by, and there are some other folks that are making comments that may have gone between you. We'll work to repost those comments at the end of this show, but we avoid getting into that conversation sub 20 minutes of the show, because all of our viewers that are non-live have asked that we stay within the frame of the show and then start fielding questions at the end. So I'm going to close out over the next couple of minutes, and we'd be happy to field questions that any of you might have. I hope you had a good holiday, ate well, and are enjoying your relaxation moments here. At any rate, this is a reminder for your health tips. Number one, try the 5-2 diet. It's fasting for a couple of days a week, and the rest of the week you're eating normally. About 75% of the doctors we sort of spent time with, about 200 different doctors over the last couple of years. And it was interesting because none of them was recommending anything in particular. They just had different versions of fasting that they were doing. And after meeting up with a pathologist at the NIH, an MD PhD, he explained that he has a schedule where he eats starting at 2 every day, but drinks prior. And then his last meal will be about 8 o'clock. And I've seen it, maybe 5 docs that are all doing the same sort of schedule. Not my taste, but wanted to mention it to you as evidently it impacts long-term impact of Alzheimer's and other sort of brain-related issues that you might save yourself from. The second item we wanted to note is don't forget no more than once a week for fried foods. Number 3, Martin just asked about when earnings come out. This is one of the things I want to say I hate about Tesla, and that is that what they did last year was that the sales are pushed to the last minute as fast as they can at the end of the quarter. And so what ends up happening is that once all the deals are done, they'll announce the 3rd or the 4th of January how many vehicles they sold and delivered. And then earnings won't come out for, I believe, I think it's like the first week of February that they're scheduled. You can actually look at, just type in under Yahoo, ask the question, because they do a good job of keeping track of that. We think that's a horrible idea, because then you end up in this zone where everyone's speculating on, well, how does the balance sheet look? How do the numbers look? Most of our companies release both the sales numbers and how the balance sheet is structured at the same time. And we think that's a good way to do it. And the way Tesla does it is kind of loopy, and it generates a lot of craziness. So I expect the craziness department to open up again, because I expect Tesla will do the same thing, because it seems like Elon really enjoys announcing, particularly if there's strong numbers, those numbers earlier than later. The other question is, how's the China numbers going to be blended into that? And that's also something that everybody's eager to hear and see. Any rate, I wanted to thank you all for taking time out of your holiday to spend time with us. Look forward to your comments and questions. Please take time to like and subscribe. We could use help on Patreon, and sending 50 cents over would help us to make some happy folks at our service facility here. I've already purchased some items, but if you guys actually chip in, I'd be happy to expand to drinks or whatever. But at this point, we're just getting some pastries, and we definitely appreciate your support, and also want to encourage you to be supportive of your service folks local as well, because they're not well paid. They're working really hard because they definitely believe in the dream of Tesla, just like us. So again, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. In Germany, we say Tschüss, macht's gut. French, au revoir. Hebrew, lehitraot. Farsi, Khoda Hafez. Salam alaikum. Hedge do, thanks to Brother Donovan. And we'll do. The other items are, or the other languages, Ni hao ma, Chinese, which is hello, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, hello. Thanks once again for joining us. Have a great day. Bye for now. We're looking forward to your comments. We love constructive dialogue on what we've had to say, but no need to be mean. We're all learning and growing here, and appreciate respectful dialogue between you guys, as well as between you guys and us. So that would be appreciated. Have a great day. Bye for now. And thanks once again for joining us.